Hi, I'm Dallas Brown. Today we're coming to you from the North Star Ranch, where I'm sitting down with New York Times best-selling author and one of the most well-known and well-respected life coaches in the world, Martha Beck. Martha, it's so wonderful to be here with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a thrill.
So today we are sitting down, we're getting ready to launch a brand new course. You and Deepak have put together an online course called The Quest, Spiritual Solutions for Creating a Life You Love. That sounds like quite a journey.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's what human life is. Basically, we know that we come into a world that is dangerous, where we are almost certain to suffer, and we're definitely going to die. And that is not for the faint of heart. And there's only two ways you can confront suffering. One is to be a victim, and one is to be a hero. And if you decide to be a hero, you hit the ground running. You are on a quest. And as Joseph Campbell showed in The Hero with a Thousand Faces, every single culture on earth goes through the same type of dynamics to describe the voyage of the hero through sort of the vale of tears, the place of fear and tasks and monsters, and how the hero becomes greater because of the quest instead of being beaten down. So that's kind of what we want to facilitate. The world is such a scary place. It's changing faster than ever. And I think most people get up some days thinking, wow, I'm either going to be a victim or a hero today. So we want to help people come together so that they can make that commitment to live as the hero and have support from Deepak and me and from each other as they go through several weeks of their lives. And then what we hope is that they internalize skills that allow them to repeat that approach to life no matter what happens to them in the future.
Wow, that sounds pretty powerful. So
Hope so.
So we're on this quest. What are we going to experience in this online course?
Well, I thought you were going to say in life. I was like, buckle your seatbelt. In the course, what you're going to experience is a perspective that comes from the arena of spirituality. So there's so much that I've done in my life and that other self-help authors have done that's about sort of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and planning your way through. And the assumption is always that you are a lone human being in a world where everything's separate from everything else, and you're going to make your way through. I have written self-help for years, and personally, and then with clients, and now just with everything, I realized you can't really take that perspective and effectively face what the world has to offer you. You kind of have to come from a different perspective, the spiritual perspective, where you say, I'm not a human being that has occasional spiritual experiences. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. So I'm no longer this person. I am a consciousness that has taken on this personality or that one or whoever's in order to not acquire experience, but to be transformed by the experience of living in a physical human form. So I think when people show up, if they have a spiritual perspective already, that's going to be a big advantage. They'll jump right in. Other people may not have that point of view. And what we hope is to show people that that actually already exists in them, that there is a place that is more secure and safer and more joyful than you typically expect from a little human living a little frightened life. There's a deeper, wiser, more connected self. And from that come solutions that you would never find if you came at it from a more typical, like non-spiritual perspective.
So it sounds like it's a complete reframing of everything that we face in our lives every day, of all of our problems.
It's reframing from the culture, because we come from the most materialistic culture on earth, which not only means that we want to acquire things, but that we see reality as made of things. And so in other cultures and in almost all of human history, there's been this aspect of the spiritual where people say, wait a second, the physical is there, but I can see it from a distance almost. But in our culture, for the last 200 or 300 years, there's been an increasing insistence that we are nothing but these things. And that is just wildly out of kilter. So for example, Freud is the big, originator of the whole discipline of psychology. And he made a big deal of how sexually repressed everyone is. We all repress our sexuality. I think he was right. He was living in 19th and 20th century Vienna. In that period of time, sexuality was very repressed in sort of the upper classes in particular in Europe. Now we're at a time where sexuality is expressed very openly compared to Freud's day. But what is repressed from my perspective is mysticism. There's not a place in the secular society for people to have spiritual experiences. And that perspective is almost gone from everything except religion. And this is not a religious approach that Deepak and I are taking. There's no organized religion behind it, although I think both of us would accept all religions as having beautiful and valid truths in them. But the actual experience of connecting with spirit is almost marginalized to sort of the woo-woo. We don't do that. But almost everyone has those experiences when they've lost a loved one, when they're terrified to go on, when something's going awfully, horribly wrong, or they have a scary diagnosis. There are spiritual experiences that people have. But we don't use that as a place from which to solve the problems that we encounter on the quest. My perspective, and I think Deepak's as well, is that there are certain issues that can only be truly faced from a spiritual perspective. And trying to do it in any other way falls short and leaves us still frightened and grasping at solutions that cannot last. So that's why I've come out of the closet so many ways in my life. And one of them is, yes, I believe in mysticism. I believe in spiritual experience. I actually depend on it to get through an hour, let alone a day. And I'm hoping that that will help other people.
So in fact, this is really not something so new and a drastic reframing. This is really a return.
This is absolutely, it's a return. And it's interesting. When you hear something that is deeply spiritually true for you, you actually don't need any kind of convincing. It lands with a clear tone. There's this resonance of truth. And it's the same resonance that shows you the beauty of a mathematical equation or some kind of statistic that's really robust. When you say to someone, your natural state of being, the state of being in which you were meant to exist, is peace. Mm-hmm. That is its own evidence. As soon as you understand the language of it, that concept sinks in, and there's not a soul on this earth, the worst sociopath, the craziest person on earth, knows it's true, that their home is peace. And so that's the kind of place from which there's such a solid stance. It's like a martial arts stance. You adopt a stance in martial arts that allows you to respond to anything. It's a little bit like surfing or snowboarding. You're responsive to the movement of the terrain or to anything that comes at you from any angle. And when you're in a spiritual position, you can move with everything and sort of fluidly stay upright. And we're in a time in history where change is accelerating faster. There's more change per day, and things are changing faster in every hour than has ever occurred before in all of human experience, ever. The only way that I know to stay balanced in that rapid a field of change is to be grounded in spirituality. So that's where we go on the quest together.
So that's where the quest begins. So
Yep.
So with this this historical moment, this time that we're in, why did you and Deepak decide on this course now?
I can't speak for Deepak, but I decided on this course now because I have to take these lessons to heart so continuously now. To stay balanced myself. And I've talked to a lot of people who are feeling this, not people who are shaky and wobbly and, in some sort of treatment, but people who are doing very, very well and who are looked to by other people as a model for balance and sanity in the world, all saying, wow, the pace is so rapid now and the energy that's flowing through the earth is so rapid that I actually have to continuously correct my stance just a little bit. I have to stay balanced actively. And that's almost where most of the energy goes for a lot of these people. Also, there's a very common belief, and I think it's actually becoming a mainstream belief, that we're in a period of transformation of consciousness, that there is only so much further we can go with the worldview that we've had for the last several thousand years of recorded history. We're going to have to become masters of a subtle and spiritual realm in order to balance the whole population of the earth and deal with the earth's ecosystems. Human life is up against a limit as to what can be sustained by the planet. And that has never occurred either. The population is so large and people are so mashed into each other,
Right.
and it get mashed in with other species. The hummingbirds are going back and forth behind us. If there is not some kind of very impressive turnaround, we not only won't be able to complete our quests as heroes individually, but the planet itself will no longer be able to sustain us as a species. So I don't want to scare anyone. That's not the solution. Fear is never the solution. But there is a very interesting set of incentives to do things differently. The way we're doing it is not working.
Absolutely.
And we have to do something differently. And if we go from fear or from anything that's purely materialistic, it'll be a repetition of what we've already done. There has to be something drastically new.
A new consciousness, a new
Sure.
way forward.
To use the catchphrase, yeah.
Yeah. So I think so many of us would say, that sounds great. I want to go on the quest. I want to go on the journey.
Yeah.
And yet there's something really scary about that, and something that holds us back from doing whatever we feel is our life's work, or following that dream, or being a part of that new consciousness. And that thing is fear, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of psychologists break down all emotion into two basic categories: attraction, which is love, and all the good feelings, and aversion, which is fear and everything that comes from fear: anger, sadness at having lost something. So you're either going towards something or away from it. And running away from things is very, very typical of our culture. If you watch the news, for example, the promos for the news, they'll always say, here's what you should worry about. Here's the things you should be concerned about. Like, be afraid, be very afraid. That's
Right.
kind of our whole culture's motto.
Well, and there's so much to be afraid of.
Yeah, that's what we end up thinking.
Right.
And not only does the culture do that, but I also think biology plays a role. I think we are organisms that evolved, and one of the things that helps us evolve successfully is a very strong fight or flight reflex. So, be afraid, run away.
Sure.
And so our biology is telling us things like, if we see something on TV, we watch 5 murders a night on our favorite TV shows, right? And then we fall asleep and we're thinking, murder is everywhere. Because it is for us.
Sure.
Right? And we rivet our attention on fear. Everybody rubbernecks at accidents, because that's an evolved trait to help us avoid danger in our environment. But our environments don't have nearly as much danger as we think they do. And it's like an excessive, we can take our abstract thinking capacity, which allows us to create fear of things that only exist in our minds. So when you wake up at night, your body is having the same response as if a tiger is charging you, but there's nothing happening except in your head.
Right.
And part of what's in your head is a culture that says, be afraid, be very afraid. Look at all these things. We scoured the globe, and here are the 5 worst things that happen all day, anywhere. You take that to bed with you.
Right.
And you'll be safer.
Right.
When in fact, you take that to bed with you, you're in danger suddenly, because your heart rate's going up, your body, we talk about this in the course, the relationship between your experience of life, your thoughts about life, your spirituality, and your physical health. You lie there and you've got all the degenerative diseases cooking away in you because of stress hormones. So you're thinking, this will keep me safe, this will keep me safe. And in fact, it's putting you in danger.
In fact, it's doing just the opposite.
Right.
So as we mentioned, our culture is beginning to shift, right? Things are changing. We can do some things to control our environment a little bit, right? And maybe turn off the evening news, not watch that before we go to bed. But what else can people do that want to start to transform some of that fear to be able to be a part of this very exciting journey that you describe?
Okay, so here's a metaphor. Say you're driving along in your car and the car's not working well. I just said, this is not working. So the car, you don't always have control of the brake, and it's speeding up, and the steering's going wonky, and you're like, oh my God, I'm in a lot of danger. And you decide you're going to try to fix the car while you're driving it. Okay, so I'm gonna like jiggle the knobs, and I'm gonna like press the pedals, and I'm gonna try to fix this because I'm in danger. You may have some effect. I mean, most of us can drive from inside the car, and that's sort of the premise of the culture, is if you press all the pedals correctly, you'll be fine. But say something's really wonky in the mechanism of the car, and in this case, the parallel is the mechanism of our body mind, the animal part of us that lives on the earth and always does things out of fear. And then we exaggerate the fear, and we're really out of balance. The best way to approach that is often to stop the car and get out. So Deepak talks about 3 levels of awareness. So there's contracted awareness, where everything's tight and frightened, and the way most people tend to feel a lot of the day.
Sure.
That's a contracted awareness where everything's tight and frightened. The next level is expanded awareness, where you start to calm down. And you may feel this way. For example, you go home after a day at the office, you're tight and grumpy, and you run and get dinner ready. But then after dinner, maybe your significant other says, honey, let's just relax and, snuggle with me and tell me how your day went. And suddenly you go, there's a softening, and you start to open. And that's when love can come in, where there was only fear before. So as you get into expanded awareness, things start to relax. That's like stopping and getting out of the car. Then there's pure awareness. That's like getting out of the car and flagging down a mechanic and opening the hood and saying, could you teach me how to fix what's wrong here? And the mechanic says, I thought you'd never ask. Here's how you do it. And you start fixing the car from the outside, and you get the understanding and the experience, and you always have help. The moment you ask for spiritual help, if you're open to it, it comes. And if you're open enough, you get to the point where you know that car, and you can fix that car. And you know that now when you get in to drive it, it'll be fine. And if something goes wonky, you immediately get out, expand your awareness, go to a spiritual perspective, look under the hood of your life and say, I know how to fix that now. And that way, the journey, the quest becomes very calm. So it's not necessarily you're fighting monsters every minute. That happens at the beginning.
Right.
But the idea is that the more times you quest, and we all go on, it's like the games that level up, and you always go on a new quest. The more quests you go on, the better you are at dealing with any quest. It's called a meta skill or a meta learning, where if you learn one language and then another language and then another language, the languages can be different, but your ability to learn a foreign language increases enormously with each new language.
Right.
So by going through the course, what we're hoping is that people can be driving the little car of their lives with confidence that they know how to expand if things get scary. And they'll, even if they don't know every detail about how to fix something, there's a mechanic available always who knows everything. And we can always rely on it.
I love that. I love that metaphor. And I think what I love most, and probably what people watching this love most, is the promise that it can get easier, right? We can get better at this.
If that were not true, I would not be talking to you. I would be under the bed, curled into a fetal position, sucking whipped cream out of a can. Yes, it does get easier.
So what do people need to go on the quest?
All you need to go on this quest is obviously the technology, because it relies on phones and computers in part.
Right, so you need a computer and an internet connection.
Yeah, and a phone, because we're going to be doing some interactive stuff for some of the Is that not right?
Yeah, that's right. So as part of this course, we're going to have 4 live coaching calls with Martha, which I think is possibly one of the most exciting part of the course. So you're actually going to get on the phone with people each week and do some of this work with them.
Right. So we'll be meeting as a large group, and we'll take questions from the online forum, and I'll start to address some of those and coach a few people so that everyone else can sort of be vicariously along for the ride.
That is very, very exciting.
Yeah. So you need that, but you also need suffering and the desire to stop suffering. And that is actually a resource that is not in short supply on our earth. But the beauty of this type of approach is that suffering itself, you begin to see as the motivation to learn to overcome the problematic the great thing about that is that as you go through the course and start to internalize these meta skills, you realize that even suffering itself is a gift, because suffering is what gives us the motivation to expand our spiritual skills, our ability to remain calm, our heroic qualities that help us with every quest. And it's so rewarding to come out of suffering and into peace that it's almost like, I like to compare it to sports. I like to ski, and if you're going down a steep slope, it's really terrifying, and then you get the ability to do better from negotiating something really scary, and then at the end you feel such an overwhelming rush of joy that you want to go do it all over again.
Right.
And it gets boring when there's not enough challenge. Well, this life has tons of challenges, so let's all learn to navigate that skillfully so that we can do it joyfully and not just adequately.
Absolutely, and that's what we're all going to be learning how to do with you and Deepak on the quest, which is, I'm very excited.
Me too.
I think we're all very excited about this. So, Martha, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today, for having this conversation. We are all so excited to be going on the quest with you and Deepak and creating a life that we love through spiritual solutions, finding easier, more fulfilling ways to deal with our problems, and enjoying our lives a little bit more.
Absolutely. Come join us.
Thank you.